Hey, how's it going, you guys? It's AP with another video, and today I want to talk about uh, something that I seen on YouTube earlier today. It was about a young man who was telling about how it was for him to move out of his parents' home, during his high school years, uh, and he was explaining his hardships. He was explaining his experiences as a young man, and um, he was explaining how from in high school he'd be like from house to house with friends. I never experienced that, but I had friends that did experience that. It's almost like a repetitive story among young men, uh, that from my experience, I also had friends that would move from home to home. I would visit some friends, and their environments were not. I thought my environment was bad, but then I'll go to other friends' house, and their situation was um, a little bit worse than, or a lot worse than what I was used to. But um, and then he talks about how he moved out of state when he graduated high school, and I also had friends who moved out of state, either during high school or out of high school, and and this guy, the YouTube guy, when he moved back to his home state, and he was again from house to house, couch surfing, and then at the very end, he moved back with his mom, and he says it was a difficult time, for him and his mom, and until he finally got himself an apartment. He uh, he mentions his type of personality, which I feel like I'm kind of similar with him. That I don't really like to, put my life, my information, my business out there. I like to keep it to myself. I move silently, like a cat, like a cool cat. Um, and His mom didn't know until he signed the lease that he was moving out. And he said once he got his own place, his own spot, he just felt freedom. And he was explaining how there's, freedom could be good for certain types of people, and it shows who you really are as a person. Like if you get money, lots of money, and if you're an addict of any, avenue of any avenue, alcohol, drugs, women, gambling, whatever, vices, that's what I meant to say. Vices, the money is just gonna magnify your personality of who you are inside. But there's other people that it frees them, and it's a healthy freedom where you can like level up and actually change your environment to what fits you, what works for you. And that's what he was explaining. So when you get your own place, you have the freedom to do what you want. You can um, you can go to sleep the time that you want. You can have pets. You can have the TV if you want ESPN on all day. I don't know if they still have ESPN, but any sports channels, it's on. The game on NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, UFC, doesn't matter. It's your place. You can have whatever you want on, and or you can have watch novelas, or La Rosa de Guadalupe if you're Mexican, or any like female orientated TV shows. You could watch the Powerpuff Girls. You could watch whatever it is that you want to watch. It's your home, and also with that, you can have any guests that you want. Your friends. You can bring females over if you're single. Um, you or not, whatever. You could bring females in, not a problem. If you're with your parents and you're trying to bring girls in over, it gets sticky, tricky. But now that you have the freedom, you're also going to be aware of who you bring into your home. You're not going to bring in people that you know are going to be destructive, chaotic, or just you're not going to bring them in to your place. So like he said, with great freedom, great power, comes great responsibility. So you move differently. As when you're in your as a child, you're like, man, I'm gonna eat chocolate all day. I'ma jump on my bed. I'ma paint my walls. I actually did that. I would tag up my walls, and my whole door was tagged up and broken into and smashed in. And but that's because I wasn't paying for it. You know, I was an idiot. But now that you're paying for, for your things, and it costs you, you take care of everything. You watch what you eat. You're not gonna eat chocolate. You're gonna be like, I gotta take care of myself, because I gotta be reliable at work. I gotta be functioning. I gotta be alert. I gotta, make sure all the bills are paid on time. You're just not gonna be thinking like how you thought when you were a kid. Now that you're responsible for this, if anything goes down, it's your name on the lease, and you're the one who's gonna have to pay for whatever damages happens to the place. And it's hard. It's having your own place. It's really nice. It's peaceful. You hear that? It's peaceful. You could but you're responsible for every. It costs a lot too. So it costs a lot. It takes a good portion out of your paycheck. If your income is not, even if your income is high, it doesn't matter. It's still gonna take a big portion out of your paycheck, your income. But I could relate to this young man. I could relate because I remember when I first got my own place. I was 24 years old. Personally, I felt like I could have been on my own, independent, at a much younger age. I would guess maybe 19, 20 years old. That's still kind of, depending on what spectrum you come from, environments, that could either be early or that could be late, super late. There's some kids out there that are, they've been independent since they came out of their mother's womb. They've been ready. They've been adults since 5 years old. They've been adults since 7. And there's guys that become adults till the age of 30. Some people never become adults or grow up, and that's cool too. But so I think I was ready at a younger age, but due to some, the way things were with me, I would say a background of, immigrants, Mexican, ancestry, and how it is. A lot of Mexicans can relate to, if you're Mexican, you can relate to what I'm saying, and how the dynamic is within the family, our way of thinking from Mexico, and how our parents grew up in their country, to how first generations like me grew up. We can understand how, like, the normal thing, or the basic things that seem really like natural or normal for other people or communities, it seems extremely difficult for us. I'm not saying that it's impossible. It's just that our way of thinking, and not only the country, the culture, but the time too. Like my parents, they grew up at a different, like a different generation, so they carried their way of thinking is different from my way of thinking. And if I ever do decide to have children, their way of thinking is not going to be the same way as mine. We might have similar ideas, but each person is an individual, so they're going to have their own way based off of however what they have in their head, their experiences, whatever, etc. But yeah, I remember. So by saying that, I remember moving to my first place at the age of 24, and this was around, I would say, like 2019, when COVID hit. It was difficult. I was, living in an expensive area, very expensive. Um, the rent for like the apartments at that time, it was probably like, I'm not sure, maybe 2,500 to 3,000 and up for a 1 bedroom. So having your own apartment in that area was very difficult on your own. So I was renting with a parent in a little small room. It was tiny, and it was tiny, and I, it was a difficult time, and I think I was living there for a year and a half, and it just it was a lot, but it was just for that moment of time in my head. As soon as I got in there, I was like, this is just. It was difficult, but in my head, I was like, this is just temporary. I'm gonna find something better, even though it took longer than expected. Because I lived in that little tiny room with someone else for a year and a half, and it was difficult. And that house housed a lot of people. I would say like maybe 8 or 10 people, and there's only one bathroom. There's two bathrooms, but one was off limits to the homeowners. So it was difficult, man. That bathroom was dirty, man. Shh. I didn't want to take showers, you know. But that's the situation I was in. COVID hit. Um, Everyone was sick. Everyone got sick. I think me and my family member were the only people that weren't sick. And this was a time where it's scary. People on the news, people are passing away or supposedly passing away. I personally had a family member that passed away, R.I.P. Tia. Um, but it was a difficult time, and I was kind of paranoid too. I didn't want to get sick, and but thank God I found a place. I was every night I would go to sleep. I would be on the phone on Craigslist or Facebook, whatever. I found this little place nearby, a reasonable price for that area, and I went to go check it out. Um, but live. But before that, when you live with people, it doesn't matter. I love them to death. They could be my best friends, the best roommates. It doesn't really matter your brother. It doesn't matter if you're living with someone. There's just gonna be friction. It could be small, medium to like impossible, but you're always gonna have friction with the wife and the husband. They love each other. They'll do anything for each other, but there's gonna be friction, even if they're tiny ones. Even if it's a healthy, you're just gonna have friction. That's how relationships work at work, at school. You might not get along with a professor, with a classmate, a coworker. There's always gonna be friction. Man, there's a freaking fly here, trying to get in the video, trying to be famous. Anyways, there's always going to be friction, and as humans we just gotta figure out a way. There's always going to be that way, but there's always a way to solve them. And if not, then you're just going to have to part ways, whatever it is. And me and my family member, since we're in a little tight room, there's going to be friction. So at that time we decided to part ways, and I want to go look at this place. It was a studio. It had everything, had everything. It was small, but it had everything, and it was nice. It was up in the hills. Um, you know, in the mornings, I'd open up my door and there'd be deer. I didn't even know there was deer in that area, but I guess up in the hills there's deer, and it was a nice place. Um, on a clear day, you could see the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was nice. The weather was nice, everything was nice, but having your own place brought you freedom. I started Once I got my own place, I started doing things my way. I started eating better. I started just keeping everything organized and clean. Um, I could go to sleep whenever I wanted. It was just a freedom, and I wasn't never like really like a chaotic person, so I was just chill, and just peace, just chill. I have my mom over whenever she stopped by. She'd get her coffee. She'd be on the phone with her sisters, uh, on the phone. Um, and I'd be like, playing Call of Duty. It was just a nice experience. And it's true, when you get your own place, you just you grow up, you level up, you have responsibility, and it's good for men and women to experience this. I know it's more difficult right now, but if you ever get the chance to, it will definitely, you will definitely level up, grow up, have a different type of mindset. But yeah, I just thought about that as I was watching that video, and it reminded me of my situation back then. But I think that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys took any value in that, you know, I hope you guys do. And I'll see you guys in the next video.